Giant stalker, dragon stalker, crypt stalker, demon stalker, rift stalker, grown stalker, crypt stalker, scourge stalker, wind runner. I'm a bone elite skill hunter, a death dealer, a life stealer. That's just the cost of being awesome.
Welcome to episode 131 of the Hunting Party Podcast. This is Euripides from Home Insider, DPS, and Call to Auction.
And I'm Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
And this is Frosttime from Warcraft Hunters Union, WoW Insider, and Frosttime WHU on Twitter.
And I'm Molly Sonder from the Hunting Party Podcast and the Torlore Podcast.
Traitor.
Don't say it.
Too late.
Okay, if you want to participate in the chat room today but aren't registered, just go to the chat window, and today you're just going to type F cancer in the chat window and you'll be prompted to register, and we'll explain that in a moment.
And speaking of the live chat room, we are joined today in the live chat room by Akator, Avris, Aspects, BM Jager, Ella Pide, Esnvip, Foxtrap05, Githa, Gobo, Havtor, Hulk, Hotshot, Gunt, Induates, Kamon, Mullingrew, Mushan, Nightwear, Premox, Scruffy, Shroud Viper, Slugslinger, Wreck, and as always, your lovely moderator, Ollie Sonder, who is ready to take your questions. If you have a question or a topic you want us to discuss, and it's a light news week, so we hope that you have plenty of them, please send it to Ollie Sonder in a private message, and she will rank your questions and determine whether or not they get asked based on the worst possible thing you can say about cancer. This is going to be a bad week for Euripides, I can tell you that right now.
No, not Euripides.
Dark Brew.
This is going to be a bad week for Dark Brew.
I have my pen and pad ready to go. I'm jotting down times, seconds. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, we should probably explain why we're so vigorously against cancer this week. Mania of Mania's Arcania and the creator of the Petopia website just announced that she has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. So she's scheduled to have it surgically removed next week. And the prognosis at this point is pretty good. We just wanted to wish her the best and hope for a complete recovery.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can go over to Mania's Arcania. She has a post about it, kind of explaining it. It's not good news. It sounds like she definitely has a chance at a full recovery.
Yeah, but she seemed relative. Given her situation, she did sound somewhat upbeat. So it sounds like she has a very good attitude about this right now, which is so big in terms of getting better and recovering from this thing. So I was encouraged by how she wrote and how she sounded in her post. So it sounds like she's got the right attitude for this anyway.
Yeah, I was particularly fond of this quote. Obviously, a malignant tumor is bad news. I'm pretty annoyed about the whole thing, especially since it's happening during the midst of Pandaria Beta.
Oh, Mania. Yeah, I gotta say, I've never had to deal with this, but from what I hear, just like many other things in life, a lot of this fight is going to be on the mental side. So it sounds like she's in good spirits. I was kind of blindsided by this. I actually heard about it reading.
Hello?
Hello, Euripides, we lost you.
I think he just disappeared.
Oh.
So apparently Euripides was about to say that he was kind of blindsided by this and learned, there he goes, and learned about it when he was reading the show notes. But to be fair, Mania's post just went up today.
Yes, it wasn't like it had been there all week or anything. It was a very, very recent thing.
Yeah. Speaking of Euripides, there is an interview with Euripides over at quellshuntingcorner.com, and you can learn all about his childhood and his hopes and dreams and probably something about hunters.
Yeah, I have to. I actually haven't read it myself, so I have to take a look and see what he had to say. But
I actually did. It was pretty general. Talk a little bit about the podcast and DPS, of course, and also about Call to Auction a little bit.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. My internet decided to flake out. Are we talking about happier news? Quell from Hunting Corner.
We are talking about Quells.
Well, no and yes.
Well, we're talking about Quells from Hunting Corner. Yes.
Yeah, that was a whole lot of fun. That was a great honor to be asked by him all kinds of strange questions. I like the way he does his interviews. He asked just like one of the questions was like, if you were stuck on a desert island with the three, what would you bring? And I was sitting there trying to figure out what the two. Yeah, I think I did a pretty good job at representing the two of you.
Yeah, as I recall, it was you said Dark Brew would, being practical, would probably bring some work to catch up on while he was stuck on the desert island.
Well, because he knows that it's my imaginary scenario, so we're probably going to get rescued. And of course, I'm just my point would be getting rescued. So a boat and a satellite nav or radio or something like that. And I think Frostheim was granted a fifth of tequila and a frisbee. I don't know why that seems so appropriate, but it really does.
I'm not sure how far that fifth of tequila would get us, but a frisbee, man, that would be hours of fun every day. You guys would be like, dude, we're stuck on a desert island. What are we going to do? And I'm going to be like, hey, man, I got a frisbee. We're set. We'll while away the hours here. We'll try to find a way to turn frisbee into a boss raid.
Yeah. Or a game of like tag or something. But so if you want to check it out, and actually he's got Quell has a lot of good content on his site in general. You should totally go take a look at it. It's quellshuntingcorner.com, QUELS, or if you just Google search Quell's Hunting Corner, or check it out. I think there's a link on the WHU as well, right?
Actually, let's go. I'm sure Wild Hunters Hall has it.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Let's go check out right here Euripides interview.
Of interest, he took a screenshot between 2 days that I was working on my transmogrification. And before you guys jump all over me, I got to say, I know I said I would never do transmogrification, but it turns out that it's actually a fairly significant advantage in PvP. So, I learned this the hard way when I bought an arena carry to 2200 and 4.1 or 4.2 or something because I wanted the gun for marksmanship. Mm-hmm. And I thought that the 2200 gear, because you can actually get a separate set of gear by trading in your old stuff at 2200, I thought that it had a stat bonus. I wasn't even looking, so I just walked in and I bought it all, and then I gemmed it and enchanted it. I'm like, all right, so how much higher are my stats? Oh, wait a minute, they're exactly the same, so why did I bother? And then it turns out that I would have to go and pay I'd have to go and make a huge number of points to go and get back all of my old gear. And in the end, it was even worse than that because anytime, this is before transmogrification, anytime you're out there, people will automatically pick who they see as the biggest threat. And if you're wearing a set of gear that makes you, and especially when you're a hunter and you have a minimum range and you're fairly easy to shut down, you become the first target. So,
so instead you're transmogging into a mishmash of green crap that you picked up while questing. So people are like, oh, he's not a threat.
That was my first theory. I'm just like, how can I transmogrify myself to look like a huntard? I'm like, it might only buy me like 5 seconds or an initial choice for one person one time, but it's just transmog. It doesn't really cost that much. But then I realized if I wanted it to be more believable, I wouldn't want to look like an Outlands clown because that's not believable. No, very few people in Battlegrounds are just that bad, and you can tell when they're that bad by looking at their hit points more than what they're wearing. So I decided to take my 403 shoulders and make them look like 390 shoulders, the Honorbot ones, and he actually took a screenshot of me with just that in the gun. That had been the only thing I changed because I had the Deathwing normal mode gun, and I use that because it gives me more burst. Mm-hmm. And anyways, so that was the only thing I'd done at that point. But then I have since gone through and transmogged all of my other, because it's a different color. All the 403 stuff is a different color than the 390 stuff. So I went and transmogged all my 403 stuff into 390 stuff, or better yet, into PvE gear, like raiding gear. So it looks like I'm basically just some guy that got out of a raid, and he's probably not that good at PvP. You shouldn't bother with him.
That's interesting, because this seems to me to be, I guess maybe that's not fair. Because I could totally see, like, running around and be like, oh, hey, that guy looks weak. I'm going to go ahead and nuke him down. And I guess maybe that's more of a raiding strategy than a PvP strategy.
No, it's absolutely a PvP. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't apply in serious PvP. RBGs and arenas don't have weak players. Or if they do, it's only at the low levels of MMR, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't do a lot of that because I'm not really serious about PvP. I just enjoy it casually. So
what you're saying is so in the Pudknocker PvP circles, which is also where I live, people are more apt to go after the tough guys?
Well, they're more apt to go after the biggest threat. And I'm not talking about who they choose to damage, because actually that hunters are pretty good at avoiding damage. I'm talking about who they choose to CC.
Sure.
If you
Okay, I see. That makes sense. Yeah.
So
No,
if you
I would do that. I'd be like, dude, CC the healer. If there's no healer, CC
Right.
the big, scary, buff-looking warrior, and I'm going to go.
Yeah, or the tank that you know is going to take like an hour to kill, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's the worst. Is when people. Now, here's the thing: a lot of people say, "Yeah, I PvP as a tank, not because I can kill people, but because nobody can kill me." Right? Well, that's only true if you have resilience. So nothing makes me happier than seeing somebody with no resilience and no understanding of PvP rolling tank on the opposite team. That's just one of those things that makes my day, because I'm just like, and more often than not, to be honest, it's a druid. If you're a druid with no gear and you want to start PvPing, you're gonna go tank, and I'm gonna fear you a lot. It's just your day is gonna be spent running around until it's on diminishing returns, and then I might trap you, scattershot you, and kill you. So that's one of the fun parts about PvP.
So let me just suggest for a moment that searching for Euripides' interview is not a good way to find an interview with you. I mean, it's there eventually. Oh wait, no, that's episode 34 of the podcast.
I searched for Quell's Hunting Corner. I didn't spell it properly because I was in a rush, and it was Google auto-corrected me, and the very second link on Google for Quell's Hunting Corner is his most recent post, so that's how I found it. I mean, we can put...
Okay, but if you search for Euripides interview Frisbee, it comes right up. Just toss Frisbee in there.
The article title is "An Evening with Euripides," so if
that could be part of it. You
could search for it that way.
Well, that paints a mental picture.
Yeah, I know, right? And not a good one. You need to transmog into one like the style in Crimson Hat and like a diamond tip cane. Don't you want to go like all silly if you're going to go PvP with your...
Except you usually can't transmog into silliness.
Yeah, not if you're using serious gear. A lot of the silly stuff is going to be cloth or whatever, or stuff that we don't wear.
Yeah. The styling Crimson Hat is a male item. It's a blue quality, I think, and it looks like it is male, and it looks like one of those little pimp hats,
Okay. Well, the thing is, the other thing I don't like is being recognizably easy to pick, or being easy to pick out of a crowd or recognize. So I actually don't show my helm no matter what I wear. So I didn't bother transmogging it, or if I did, I don't remember what I put it to. One thing I was actually the one nod to aesthetics that I gave, and more for myself than anything else, because it wasn't that hard to get. But you remember Giant's Bane?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I made my gun look like, because I'm just like, you know what? Or was it a gun? Or what am I using? No, I'm using, of course, the Deathwing bow. Or crossbow. But anyways, so I transformed my weapon into Giant's Bane, and just because that was one of the first icons that I used on OTPS, so I had meant to get around to it for a while, and since I was in the transmog place anyways, I just decided to do that. That was the only nod. I mean, the purpose is to hide the weapon I'm using, so they can't tell by looking at me what I am. Okay. Except for the fact that I'm wearing what appears to be a cheesy mix of Honorbot gear and PvE stuff.
Sure, but just to be clear, you said you would never transmog, but then you finally did because you found an actual in-game advantage, and then you transmogged your ranged weapon into something for aesthetic reasons.
So what you're saying is it's a gateway drug, and yes, you're absolutely right. It's a gateway drug. Although, the other thing I'd like to point out that I was much happier with is that he happened to catch me wearing my guild tabard.
I saw that. It stands way out.
Enormous Canadian flag. It's just so awesome. I did it to troll my guild because we had a bunch of people join us from a guild that had stopped raiding, and it turns out that more than half of them were Canadians that knew each other in real life. And I'm just like, well, at this point we have a quorum. So I'm like, this is now a Canadian guild. And I made the guild tabard a Canadian flag, and I wear it all the time. In fact, I've been known to throw down the guild banner, several of them. Like I'll have people throw them down with me, and ride my lion with my page standing next to me and my tabard in front of the auction house and just yell Canada for a while. It's pretty good. It's like Occupy Stormwind.
You're one of those people.
Well, not very often. I think I might have only done
hanging out, role playing in front of the auction house.
Trolling. Oh, you're trolling. There's a difference. There's a difference.
No. I think this all started with transmog.
No, actually, this happened way before I transmogged. This is back when I was just wearing my PvE gear.
Yeah, next thing you know, we're going to find you in Goldshire.
I actually spent a lot of time in Goldshire, and it's not something I'm proud to admit, but It's mostly because that's where, on my realm, most of the duels happen. I mean, it's either
like
that or
they
in
happen
front of the
in
gates.
every realm.
I see. Yeah. So you just go there to cross swords.
I go there because I'm usually looking for an arena partner to cap points with, so I don't have to spend valor points, just in twos or whatever, not for rating. And you're more likely to find someone there. If you stand outside Goldshire long enough, you will get somebody to challenge you to a duel, and that's good practice.
Yeah, fair enough.
Especially
It's a good place to go to find a partner. So, in Hunter news, we have a couple wee tidbits of Hunter news. The significant one is it looks like they are making a change to True Shot Aura, so that True Shot Aura will no longer grant the 5% increased critical strike chance buff.
Yeah, last week we were talking about that, eh?
We were saying, oh, well, they're going to get rid of all these pets. They're going to have to change all the pets that have the 5% critical buff because we bring it with True Shot Aura, and that's the route we thought they were going to go. But
there's
obviously
another
not.
They're like, oh, that's a good point. You know what? We could just take 5% crit away from the hunters.
I think that might have been planned from the beginning. What is True Shot Aura going to give us now?
It gives us some stuff.
Is it still attack power, or I have to go look now? I mean,
it gives us. I have to double check this.
Yeah, it's attack
haste, right? No, it's just the AP.
Yes.
Right, haste went away. Ah.
Yeah, it was always attack power, and then they added the crit on top of it with Mist of Pandaria.
Right, because because you think about it, it was really nice. And when you think about it, right now, in Cataclysm, hunters, depending on spec, can bring one of three buffs, right? The 3% damage, 10% AP, or the melee ranged haste. So it kind of made sense that they're like, okay, well, we're getting rid of that 3% damage, but you know what? We'll give you 2 buffs, so hunters still bring 2. And there was kind of this notion, I felt like, that they were like, we're going to make sure that the pure DPS classes bring maybe a little bit more attractive buffage than the hybrids, which have other reasons to be more desirable. And they're like, never mind, 10% AP, that's all we get. And I'm not complaining. Makes the pets useful. We don't need to bring 2. But I don't know. It's always sad to see something go.
Yeah. Well, it didn't go, like you said. They just moved it to the pets. It's just the process of moving it to the pets took 2 builds, one to move it there and then one to take it off True Shot Aura.
Yeah, I liked it better with True Shot Aura because that freed up, give you a little more flexibility with pets, and I don't know where that 5% crit buff is going to fall.
Yeah,
and needing to bring
it
to a raid or something like that. Certainly, out soloing, you're probably not going to use that particular buff. You'll probably bring out a different pet, I would think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's sort of an interesting question of game design, right? On the one hand, they want us to feel like it's useful to bring different pets, like it's an arsenal, or a toolkit that we can choose our weapon from, and that's sort of a fun thing to be able to do. Like, look around, what buffs do I have? What buffs am I missing? And now there's a small enough number of them that you can actually keep track of it manually without having to use an add-on.
Well, don't forget they also have changed the UI, so the UI tracks it for you.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say, well, I can do this or I can do that. So it gives you a little bit of extra meta gameplay before you go and pull the first boss. You can actually choose your pet based on some sense of utility. However, on the other hand, the other game design that they seem to spend a lot of time designing around is being able to bring whatever pet you want. And it's a company. They have to find a balance between these two. So I guess it's just going to be a matter of. The fact that we can now have any pet we want be either a tank or a DPS or a PvP pet is a good step in the second direction there. But the other, the fact that they still bring unique buffs is a sort of a step in the other direction.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how it washes out once they're done with all their buff juggling at the end of the beta to see, because there's always those buffs that are like, yep, these buffs you can be pretty confident are or 10-man raid or whatever is always going to have them. And then there's a handful like, ooh, these are the ones that might be missing. This will be interesting to see. For all we know, 5% crit will fall into that category of like, oh yeah, someone always has that. And at least that was my experience always has been like, there's certain buffs that you can be pretty sure, regardless of composition, it seems to always be there. And other buffs that are a little less common.
Yep. And that'll also depend on your guild and the people you play with, and the makeup of your group. And
whether you do 10s or 25s, right? And 25s, even now, you're never going to be without every buff.
Well, we manage it actually. We run with about 8 druids and 8 hunters. I don't know why or how.
But we usually have almost
that
every
makes
buff.
sense.
It's rare that we have to bring out a pet to compensate, for multiple buffs. It's usually like one of the hunters will have to bring out one type of pet, either to get like a bleed, and it's usually like the bleed that we're missing.
Yeah.
Like last week, we didn't have like the magic debuff for some reason. We had no warlocks in the group, so we had needed that. But we're usually only missing like no more than one buff in our 25 man.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy once that magic debuff gets put onto a pet that can be turned back into ferocity, because the Wind Serpent is cunning, if I remember correctly, and that's not necessarily the best thing right now.
Yep, and that's also one that I have frequently had to bring out.
I remember back in 4.0 and 4.1, that was a huge deal for me as survival, because back then I think we were still survival. We had started off as survival this expansion.
Yep.
It was just a huge damage increase. It was like almost everything we did was affected by that debuff, and if we didn't have it, which we often didn't, bringing out that pet was a big deal. So I was able to, put together a couple of different things that would make up for the lack of direct damage, the difference in direct damage that it did. So I was able to, for example, I made a point of macroing a Roar of Recovery, because I would be able to use that when it really counted or something. Just little things that you could do to sort of lose as little as possible while still getting the buff.
Yeah. And I guess the other news, other than the True Shot aura change, is we did get a MMO champion did mind the Hunter Tier 14 set look. So what it's going to look like, and of course they don't know for certain, so they kind of show it like, here's a couple different colors it could be. And being a podcast and not a video cast, we don't have really the ability to show you that, other than suggest you can go to MMO Champion and get an idea. It looks good. It's not flamboyant. It's not like a crazy out there love it or hate it skinned Murloc. I
hated that so much.
It is a far cry better than the tier 11, like the Murloc suit with the little whatever. Like you could just pull up alongside a dock.
Yeah, I'm also appreciative that the helmet has these 2 big yak horns or whatever on it, and one of them isn't broken. That pleases me.
Yes, I agree with you there.
So finally managed
I kind of like the asynchronous look, though. Like that. I remember. I think it was a PvP from last season or something. Hunters had an eye patch. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Well, if you really like the asymmetrical thing to it, it does have a big giant shoulder guard on just the right shoulder.
Oh, that's right.
I do remember.
And then like a little spiked leather shoulder guard on the left shoulder.
I thought
that's kind of like for the set. Yeah, I guess they have to introduce a certain amount of asymmetry somewhere. That kind of reminds me of, I don't know, one of those Asian RPGs that I used to play. I don't remember which one. It might have even been Final Fantasy. Like Final 7, did they have like one guy with a huge like armor on one side only kind of thing? I don't know. Anyways, it's a theme I've seen before.
Well, it's interesting because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, they're implying that hunters are right-handed because you obviously want the extra shoulder guard on your sword arm. But then I was like, but wait a minute, if you're shooting and you're right-handed, your stance is the opposite, so maybe they're implying that we're left-handed.
Well, either way, the arm that pulls that pulls the arrow is
the trigger.
The one that would have. Yeah, good point. Actually, it would be different for bows and guns. Guns, obviously, it doesn't really. I guess the one that would have like the shoulder. What do they call it? The butt of the rifle in the shoulder would have less armor, or armor specially designed for that. If you're doing archery, of course, you would want to have as little armor as possible on the arm that's actually pulling the string. I guess crossbows wouldn't matter, or they'd be kind of like guns.
I think you want more armor on whatever shoulder is facing toward the enemy.
Yes. So hunters can only shoot.
Hunters shoot left-handed. And I guess they're not really. I guess if you put a melee weapon in, then you switch to right-handed. You're like Inigo Montoya there.
I just want it to look cool because it's like a magic game, and I'm going to shoot just fine, regardless of how much armor, how big, how small. So I want it to look good. Although nowadays
it doesn't matter that much, right? It's like whatever. It's looking like Giant Stalker, whatever I wear.
Right. Although with the transmog now, it's not as important that you have to like the look of the new tier set. Because if you don't like it, you can just find something you do like, and wear that basically, which is kind of nice now. I mean, so it's less. It seems like it's less of a big deal as to how good or bad the tier sets look, but it's also nice to see that Blizzard is not skimping. They still care how the new sets look. They still want them obviously to look good.
Right.
I want them to go back and introduce a featureless black armor that has absolutely no distinguishing characteristics for people like me. I just transmog it to that every single time.
You know what? If they make something like that, that'll be available for purchase on the store and will have no stats.
Oh gosh!
It's like, well, if you really want to feature this black armor, you can go ahead and pay real money for it and transmog into it.
No,
I'm still waiting for that to happen. It's got to be a matter of time.
Yeah, or they can put it on that new black auction house that they're introducing.
Yeah,
it's
it's interesting. I asked Ghostcrawler about that at BlizzCon, about the notion of, will they make armor sets with no stats available on the store just for transmog purposes? And he was like, and he had commented, he's like, that's something that we've talked about. It's an idea that came up. He's like, but the thing is, it just takes a lot of resources to make an armor set. He's like, designing armor, it's like you would be shocked at how much time it takes to make an armor set. And I was like, okay, fair enough, and went on. I had bigger questions to ask, but I was thinking about it later. I was like, well, wait a minute. Given how much money they make out of anything that goes on the store, that's probably a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, I would think so.
They're also having the D3 auction house with the money. And they could always just make it a contest where have everybody send in, like, they make a template, people draw on the template, this is how I'd like my armor to be. And then they pick, I don't know, maybe 20. Or just post a few of them up on the website.
I don't think it's the creative side. I don't think it's the creative part that slows them down. I think it's the process of taking something that was drawn by an artist and turning it into something that's 3D and viewable in a game.
Right, and you got to keep in mind, right, it's not one model. It's a different model for every race and every gender of every race, and then it's got to be able to animate with every single animation that exists without doing weird stuff, which sometimes it does, and without,
Yeah, with as little, your sword dips into the ground somehow as possible.
Right.
Okay, I'll grant you that, but I
think
have
that's where
made
the time
clothes in other games, and actually making the outfit, the textures for it, that part's not too hard.
No, I think the artistic part is probably a minimal time commitment. I think it's the implementation that probably sucks up time. But if I can steer us in a wildly different direction that has nothing to do with anything on the show notes.
No, never. Absolutely not. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, man?
So something that our podcast listeners at home on their iPod or on iTunes or on YouTube or Stitcher don't appreciate the hellish pain that our stalwart live audience goes through to listen to this show is we broadcast the show live on Ustream, which is a little podcast streaming thing, and it was great for a while, and then it was like, oh yeah, when you start it up, you have to listen to a commercial, and then 30-second commercial, and then you get to listen to the podcast. Now they've got this thing.
Oh, no. You get to listen to a commercial every 15 minutes.
Right. Now they've changed from, because this was not the case for the first year or more of the podcast. Now, like every 15 minutes or every 30, it seems everybody gets it at different rates, it seems like. But everybody gets, randomly like, oh, you have a commercial now, and you're not going to hear anything that they said during this commercial. And the commercial is going to be 3 times the volume of the podcast. And so it's a lot
That's
of
obnoxious.
It's a lot of pain and agony. We have been discussing alternatives to Ustream, and the big one that we discussed recently, and of course we're all people who are too busy to do a WoW podcast, and so we haven't really investigated anything further other than talking about it. But my
suggestion was everybody should just go and meet in Frosttime's backyard. Frosttime vetoed this, and I think my suggestion had merit.
But the one thing that we have been talking about was the idea of using a Google Plus Hangout, because they recently introduced a new feature to Google Plus Hangouts where they can be broadcast. So you can now have a Google Plus Hangout, have it be broadcast. You can record it. You can shove it straight up on whatever our iTunes feed, on YouTube, whatever you want to do. But that's as far as we got. We haven't actually looked into it, verified that we can do the Hangout without webcams, which I don't even have.
I didn't realize that they had been subjected to a commercial every 15 minutes. I'm not sure how long that's been going on, but I think this makes it a higher priority for me. I'm going to make a...
And the Google one is probably one to look at. And I think, Twitch TV, and I don't know if you can do that, just do audio broadcast there without a camera, is probably another one we should investigate too.
Well, you can always fake a camera. Even if you don't have one, you can download a program that allows you to put an image as your camera or something. And that could be useful because then we could go from just an audio podcast to an audio podcast with a picture of the podcast image, the one on iTunes. And then occasionally, if whoever's broadcasting feels cheeky, we could just, insert images making fun of the other hosts or whatever,
That is interesting. So that would be like a step up. Like we go from audio to audio with a picture, and then maybe eventually we reach the point where we have like 30 different pictures every second.
Right, and that would be good like this week where we're sitting here talking about the Hunter Tier 14 and trying to describe it.
Right. It's kind of, it's got some yak horns and it's got colors.
The yak stalker set.
Yeah.
But no. So that's just want to let you know that we are kind of investigating a solution, and that the poor people who brave the horrors of Ustream to come to a live podcast and ask questions and give us something to talk about, put up with a lot more pain than the rest of you slackers.
So, Frostheim, I
Yes.
see your blatant change of topic, and I raise you a non sequitur. Going back to what Darper had said briefly before we started talking about this, the black market. Have you guys had a chance to play with that at all in beta?
No, I have not. Tell me all about the black market, Euripides.
I'm going to be asking questions. I don't have any information.
Oh.
What about you, Darper?
No, I haven't really looked at it yet. All I know is they're going to have some of the rare items up there, and I guess they're just going to be like an auction style where you just bid on them, and they're going to be very expensive. They're going to be things like Ashes of Alar, like that, the rare mount that drops off
That's interesting.
Kael'thas. And so you'll be able to get items like that, but they'll start off at like 20,000 gold, for example, and you'll just bid on those, and eventually the auction will expire, and whoever has the highest bid will get that item. So it sounds like it's a way for people like you, Euripides, who are very rich, to go ahead and just dump
Get rid of some of our money. I think that's needed.
So are the items then going to be BOP or BOE? I mean, can you try to flip them?
That's a good question.
That I don't know. I'm going to guess that they're going to be BOP. I would think that they would want.
That would be my hunch too. So basically, it's another gold dump.
Well, I think that it might actually be BOE. Some of the there's a lot of things that are changing. Like all the pets, you're going to be able to put them in a pet carrier. So if any of these things that we find on the black market auction house are incredibly rare mini pets, then you can just put them into a carrier and dump that on the auction house. If it's a mount, I think they said mounts are going account wide, but they're not BOP. But there might be some other things that are.
I very much approve of account wide mounts, by the way.
I think I do too, but I don't think I mean, I do in the sense that I'm glad everybody else is happy, but I still ride a Griffin, even though I have other stuff.
I have a habit of riding the, my default mount is the Headless Horseman's mount, because it flies perfectly smoothly, and it has no like flapping, so if I'm like, I got in the habit of doing it, so if I'm shooting videos and stuff, I can get really smooth movements with it, and it's both air and land, so it doesn't take up crap tons of space with giant wings. So that's the closest thing I have to a black cube.
Yeah, I've never gotten the Headless Horseman mount. I don't think I've ever fought the Headless Horseman, actually.
Yeah, I got it actually just the 1 year that I was doing all of the holiday things to get my 310 flying speed that then they gave you for free, bastards.
I have it like 3 or 4 times. It's pretty easy for me to get. All the rest of them are really hard. It's actually my favorite mount.
I guess aesthetically, or because of the utility that he was talking about?
It's a flying, flaming horse.
Well then.
It's like being a warlock!
And I was trying to get the one from Stratholme, the one with the flying horse with flames and wings. But I cannot get that to drop.
I have to say, I have made several hundred Strat Dead runs in hopes of getting the Black Baron's mount. Right. Not recently, but a while ago. I was doing that really regularly, and Yeah, I also never got that.
I think I got it in within my first 10. just went soloing it last.
God damn you, Dark Brew!
You know what?
Dark Brew zones in. It must be time to spawn the horse.
The one that took a long time for me to get was the one out of what was it called? The bird one that you got from the druid boss.
Oh yeah. The one that you used to have a druid in your party to.
Yes, that one took a long time.
Dark Brew's like, that was horrible. That took me
the Raven Lord is someone that Anzu the Raven Lord. That was probably 25, 30 tries, I think.
Oh my god!
That.
Dark Brew, I have a friend who spent 6 months every day farming that.
Every time you talk about how long it takes you to get stuff, Dark Brew, you're just becoming more and more reviled by the entirety of our audience.
And the one that kind of cracked me up was, I think it was my third try on the one in on the Sunwell Plateau, whatever that white hawk strider or whatever. That thing dropped ridiculously quick for me. The one thing I haven't had yet, and I haven't done a lot of runs, but I don't have a lot of hope for this one, is the blue proto drake, the one that Frost got while running naked through that instance. That's the one I really want, and that one I've never even seen that one drop.
Naked?
No, I haven't tried that. I guess I could probably do that now.
That would be, nowadays, that wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, you know what? In real life, or actually back in the day, I remember there used to be RPGs that had one of the character attributes that you would have to spend itemization points on, or whatever you want to call it, was luck. And in real life, Dark Brew, when you were being created, you were like plus 20 to luck. Like that's what you got.
Yes,
Dark Brew, when you said that you were farming Sunwell, all I could think was, if he says he got the Phoenix mount, I am never speaking to him again.
No, nothing. I never farmed the raid there. It was just the little 5-man instance. But our guild has been pretty lucky lately too. The last 2 weeks, we've had it drop 3 times now, and I haven't won it with the mount off of Deathwing, but we've had it drop back-to-back weeks now. So I'm hopeful that we'll see more of those.
So
it's not just luck too. It's also ironic luck. Like we spent probably 3 or 4 months with no appreciable melee DPS, and that incredibly ultra rare weapon that everybody's complaining about never seeing drop and always losing it to someone else when it did drop, Girthalak, whatever, the one with the tentacle. Literally every one of our hunters and half of our healers have one of these.
Wait, what's it called?
Girthalak, Voice of the Deeps, I think.
Yeah, apparently I didn't realize how potentially rare that is, because we've seen it on more than one occasion. We've had 3 of them drop in one night.
Never less than 1, or rarely less than 1. Oh, usually at least 1, as many as 3. And other guilds are they tend to run melee heavy because we don't have any melee. So conversely, everybody else has lots of melee. They're just cursing our name. So Dark Brew's luck is sort of transferred to the guild, but not in a very positive fashion.
So circling back to the black market auction house. So basically what you're saying, this is not something I paid any attention to. So what you're saying is it's essentially an auction house where the game generates rare drops and puts them up.
Yes,
that's right.
And it's things like those mounts, pets, the old tier sets, I believe, like the tier, was it tier 3? Whatever they did in the 40-man Naxxramas. I think
sure, the Crypt Stalker, the original Crypt Stalker.
Yeah, the original ones. I think they're you can get those from there. So my guess is this, that whatever the original attribute on it, whether it was BOE or BOP, whatever it is in the real rest of the game, that's probably what they would do. So mini pets would probably be BOE, but the armor pieces and mounts would probably be BOP.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of stuff that you can probably get the old-fashioned way, but I suspect that this is the mechanism they're going to use to bring back a lot of stuff that you just can't get anymore. And I don't even know what that might entail, because I don't keep very close track of the kind of stuff that you can't get anymore. But it's basically an opportunity for people with lots of in-game gold to delete it in exchange for rare patterns of pixels that have no effect on your ability to PvP or raid. Which I suppose is fair. It won't directly affect me that much. I doubt there's very much that I would consider spending money on. But if there's anything really, really cool that I kind of want, I would, I have the ability to buy basically anything I want. It's just, I don't really know what to buy because there's nothing I can do that would drag. Basically at this point, I'm expecting a huge amount of inflation during the next expansion. Every source of gold is going up in magnitude. The number of players playing will also go up. And because of that, the overall economy will just get bigger. Everybody will have more gold. There will be more competition for farmed or crafted stuff. And because of that, I'm expecting it to cost me more to keep my main in BOEs every patch the way that I do now. So that's what I'm preparing for. But aside from that, there's nothing you can do with gold. Nothing I can do, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think BOEs is probably one of the big expenses. Of course, in the beginning of the expansion, people might spend a lot to get mats to level up their professions up, but
yeah, but that pays itself off as soon as you spend a little bit of time crafting. So we also had a blue post, and I wasn't 100% sure on what they meant by this, but they were talking about the Quillen model. They said the model is currently WIP.
Work in progress.
Work in progress. Okay, that's what I.
So it probably means it's having weird, kind of like what we talked about with the gear stuff, right? It's having weird behaviors.
Yeah, well, what they said we are building a new rig for it to deal with the clipping and animation issues. Keep an eye out for the updated one soon. So it sounds like, I don't know if they're going to do a complete overhaul of the model itself. I mean, the Quillen right now are those kind of stone-looking lion pets, exotic pets. So maybe they're going to come up with a brand new model for it, but I guess there's been some issues with it.
Yeah, when they say a new rig, a rig sounds like a framework that you put something over, and that strikes me as the underlying mechanism of the actual model, not the skin that it has. What?
Sorry. So yeah, you were talking about the economy, so I got distracted, and so I went over to Google Plus, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to click Start a Hangout, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Here's a Hangout. And I'm like poking around, trying to see like, so how can you broadcast this? And I'm like, oh, there's some stuff on the top, like, oh, screen share. You could share your screen and like show in-game stuff. And I'm like, oh, YouTube. Maybe that's the broadcast thing. I click on YouTube, and it pops me up with a list of YouTube videos. So I guess what you can do is you can just stream a YouTube video, which is really cool. But the list of videos it shows me, it's like, best superhero ever. How to cheat on your girlfriend.
It's kind of random. But yeah, going back to the Quillen thing, I think that if they're building a new rig, that means it's probably not going to do the same thing as cats. Like right now, cats have a couple of animations that I've seen them do. I don't even remember what they are, but I think they kind of scratch themselves or something. Or they do stuff that's not really, it's different than just go here and fight that kind of thing. But I suspect they're going to build it from the ground up to be a little bit less gimmicky. Or not gimmicky, but buggy.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's the issue. They kind of give it like the cat animations, etc., and it doesn't work with this particular pet. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to redo it and make it look more natural, as natural as a stone lion could look.
Well, there are many stone lions in their natural habitat that we could observe if we wanted to gain a source of inspiration for this. Unfortunately, they don't move a lot. They tend to erode over time, and that's not really an animation that I think it would just take too long. Did you guys want to do some listener Q&A?
Yes.
All right.
So our first question on the Q&A front comes from Primoc, who says, completely trivial question, but I'm curious. What determines pet size? I tamed a new wind serpent, embarrassingly, to match my new transmogged outfit, and he's almost half the size of the old one. That's interesting. Pet size is usually determined by the level of the pet, except on beta, where just crazy stuff happens.
I thought pet size could be modified by the glyph.
Well, yeah, we do have a glyph that will make it,
but them a tiny little bit.
Tiny little bit. And I don't even, and I think it is tiny enough that you probably don't even really notice. At least I can't tell a big difference when I use the glyph or don't use the glyph.
On live, I've never had a pet be tamed and turn into anything less than, or anything outside of the average. Every spider I've tamed, for example, has been, even the big one in that BC zone, I forget where, but the one that was like enormous, you can tame now. And so I went and tamed it just for fun. And that thing is just a normal sized spider, except for the odd occasion when if you're experiencing a lot of lag, it starts off at its original size and then shrinks down to normal. I love it when that happens, because that thing's got to be like 5 stories tall.
Well, except in beta, where they're their original size, which makes chromatics so ridiculous. But no, it's the pet size is determined by the pet level. That's why if you have literally tamed the exact same pet on a 20th level hunter and an 85th level hunter side by side, the 85th level hunter's pet will be bigger. And back when pets didn't auto level, back in the bad old days, you would tame a pet and it would still be its little pet size until you leveled that little bastard up. So it should be the pet level.
Notice.
I've never heard of a situation in which, it looks like I tame one wind serpent and it's one size, and I tame another one and it's a different size. I've never seen that. So that's interesting. That is a precious gift you've been given.
I have a
You have a very small
to
serpent.
study this.
What was that?
I have a scientific suggestion to study this.
Mm-hmm.
Because tonight the WHO is having their 25-man hunter raid. That's 25 potential wind serpents you could compare.
Yeah. That also, they have to go and find them.
What are they raiding, by the way? What raid are they doing?
I'm not sure.
It's the plan for the first 25-man hunter raid is a little fluid. You're right. The goal was to sort of stretch out a little. If we have Tolbrad, we're heading there.
Mm-hmm.
But short of that, I think Arth was even talking about, maybe even stepping into ICC just as a warm-up and get some of the people who haven't been doing this, because a whole bunch of WHU people have been doing a bunch of 25-man hunter raids at level 80. But for the people who haven't been doing that, the idea was to warm them up with some of the differences in strategy that are required.
Mm. But yeah, going back to the pet size question, I can tell you that there are certain types of bugs that you can have that have nothing to do with your local client. I didn't realize this, but it's possible with an old enough account and with enough weird things you've done to it in the past to actually have server-side bugs in the data of your character.
That's awesome.
This might... Sorry?
I said that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. In particular, I discovered this when I was trying to make my awesome new tabard, the Canadian flag. I discovered that if I was willing to sacrifice a little bit of line exactness, I could go for a much truer color. So instead of sort of like a very reddish orange, that would be the proper straight line, I could go for a very proper deep red on the Canadian border, but it was a bunch of leaves, which didn't accurately represent the flag either way, but I decided to be chromatically accurate rather than linearly accurate. Anyways, the point is, it worked on it. Like when I made the change, I made a bunch of rapid fire successive changes to the tabard, and it stopped working on my main. It only worked on his mount, but everybody else in the guild saw it properly. So when I threw down my guild, for example, what do you call it, the bank that's got a little tabard on it, it looked wrong. But if Darkbrew threw his down, it looked right. So that's just, and that wasn't, I deleted my add-ons folder completely. I was running an absolute vanilla copy of World of Warcraft with no interference whatsoever. And I had opened a ticket, and the GM said, it might be your add-ons, but I showed him that it wasn't. So at some point, they fixed most of the problems. I'm not sure how. Sometimes it still happens, but this is completely outside of my client. So this might be a similar situation. Maybe your pet's just bugged because there's some part of their data on your character that remembers that.
I love the fact that however accidentally WoW accurately models the verages of aging. As your body starts to fall apart, your account starts, gets more and more bugs and errors that build up, and stuff doesn't work right anymore. I love that.
And just for the record, I will not be throwing down a Canadian guild tabard ever.
Clearly, obviously.
Yes. Well, you should be.
I don't think so.
Darkbrew is not a communist.
Well, he's in a Canadian guild, and Canadians aren't communists.
Canadians are all commies.
We're all
in
awesome.
The original
Haven't you ever
image
heard of
we
the
had
Red
for,
Menace?
In the original guild tabard, I believe, was those beer mugs, clinging together.
Which was
a much better tabard.
Yes, that was an awesome tabard, and it served us well for a long time. And I was a very that was actually modeled after, I believe, the design philosophy of your website. I'm just like, I mean, they don't have any images for tame druids here, so let's go ahead and use dark brews and use the whole beer motif.
Yeah.
But at this point, the Canadian thing has taken on a life of its own. I couldn't stop it if I wanted to.
Yeah, there's definitely no turning back, I guess.
All right, so do you want to hit up the next question here?
Yep.
Yeah, Turtle Hunter 1, and he says, kill shot on cancer. Oh, I like that one. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's good.
He says, what do you guys think of the state of hunters on beta so far, from a PvE and PvP standpoint, and when do you think MOP will go live? Why don't we answer that, and then he's got more stuff to ask too, but why don't we, that's a pretty open question as it is. That's good.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think we've all made predictions on when Miss is going to go live, but from the state of hunters, I can only speak to how it feels to play them, because we'll have to wait till we get to level 90, and then we'll have to wait a little bit longer for them to fiddle with all the numbers before we can talk about how our DPS balance works, which, let's face it, is what we really care about in the end. But
And PvP.
yeah. So, but the feel of playing a hunter, I think, is doing pretty good. I think our toolbox is a little bigger, and one of the things they're doing is I feel like they're loosening things up, and they're fixing bugs, and I think loosening things up is a good way of putting it. And for example, marksman hunters, having that improved steady shot buff, which is now steady focus, having that go from 8 seconds to 10-second duration. Oh, that frees you up a little bit more in that duration for keeping the buff up, plus the crazy amount of extra focus they're giving them. On the BM hunter side, right? It's like, oh, your pet no longer absolutely has to be in melee range to hit that button, so you're not stalling your kill command. So you're not stalling your rotation because your pet's in some buggy area or far away, and the fact that he runs in. So we'll have little quality of life improvements that aren't like quality of life, like getting rid of ammo. Huge quality of life improvement, but these are little quality of life improvements.
Yep.
Yeah, but these are quality of life improvements that make it easier to perform better in raids, which is nice.
It is nice, and I would say too, certainly thematically, I think hunters have become more huntery in this expansion.
More huntery.
They've ditched. We were losing the melee weapons and melee abilities, so now we're just going to be a purely ranged class. We've got new pets and new pet families, but we also have a lot of new abilities that center around the hunter and their pets, such as Stampede, Dire Beast, Murder of Crows, and Lynx Rush. So we've gotten a number of abilities that involve the hunter and their pets. So I think we're starting to look like more pure hunters than perhaps we have ever been in the history of World of Warcraft. And I think that's a neat thing. I think that's good.
And I'm not nearly serious enough about PvP in order to give a proper answer to this, but to all the people I see talking about it who are, gladiators or extremely good at WoW PvP, they're saying if things continue the way they are, hunters are going to be overrepresented because they're just too awesome. I don't know why, I don't know how, but if it's true, I'm not going to complain.
Well, which means it's going to be a lot of fun for the first 2 to 4 weeks, and then everyone's going to complain when the Nerf bat slams them in the face.
Well,
it's always rough to have your neck stuck out a little too far, but to be fair, we've been a little boned for a long freaking time on the PvP front.
I think that they're paying close enough attention to this that they are probably going to nerf us before anything serious happens. Like for a while, like as soon as
live goes.
Yeah. Well, for a while, once we hit 85, for a couple of weeks, hunters were unbeatable in PvP. You could not even 2v1 a hunter. It was impossible. Aim shot was just overwhelming. It was impossible to unless you had a hunter on your team, you weren't going to get anywhere. And obviously that had to be fixed, but it was fixed within a few weeks. It was fixed before, and this is important, the majority of people hit the max level and started doing PvP. I think that by the time we get to the point where we're starting to do PvP, hunters will be ahead, and sustainably ahead. Not so far badly ahead that they're going to need to... What are you giggling about?
Sorry, Esnavipe in the chat room says, so true. Well, as long as Frost doesn't make any videos about it, maybe we won't get nerfed so fast.
It's not even Frost. It's guys on Arena Junkies.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah,
I tell you, no
Frost,
video I make has ever caused us to get nerfed in PvP.
I would actually strongly recommend you for us to go and do some PvP at level 90 and show those videos to Ghostcrawler as a state of Hunter balance. Say, look,
Look, it's
you need
horrible.
to
We need
adjust
buffs.
hunters.
I'm getting just destroyed. My spore bat got killed. WTF? What can I do without my spore bat?
While we're speaking of PvP, I'd just like to put out a short correction. I realized that I wasn't quite up to date on Hunter PvP, and like I said, I'm very casual about this. I don't do it seriously for rating, but apparently now the monkey is the absolute best pet for PvP.
So you're saying it's better to throw in someone's face than to spew gooey webs over them?
Yes,
okay.
That is what I'm saying. Although
It's
I probably
just like life.
Yes, it depends on your situation, but I'm usually not capable of throwing gooey webs at anyone. So if I had to choose between the two, I'd choose the one that would be more. Well, I would actually choose to do neither because I'm not a very tough guy in real life.
Well, that's why you need the extra help, right?
How do we get into this conversation?
I don't know. You brought us here.
Do we have any other Q&A?
No, we do have an email.
We have more. He had more questions.
More questions. Sorry, what else was there?
Yeah, he also wanted to ask you, Euripides, if he feels the glyph of camo will be a must-have for PvP, so we can move into stealth and cast camo in combat.
Yes.
And he wants to wish Mania all the best.
Oh yes, and he says it's his radiation therapy.
Echo that last one, Mania. Yeah. The glyph of camo is going to be non-optional for PvP. In arena, the ability, like rogues. The most annoying part of rogues, except for the fact that once they get below 10% health, they basically stop losing health. The most annoying part about rogues is that you can be doing all kinds of horrible things to them. You can mark them up and everything, put a bleed on them, and they'll just disappear. Gone, completely secure. You can't do anything to them except drop a flare and wait for them to, backstab you.
Well, we won't quite have that.
No, but the point is, if you can go into camo in combat, you can have a little bit of that.
Well, until
it'll
the
be
next
obvious.
Tactics.
Yeah, it'll be obvious where you are, but the point is it'll deselect you. If you hit camo and you're not moving, they will deselect you. And when the dot takes you out, they'll have to reselect you. Another one is if you don't have any dots on you, because dots are something that means you can't be CC'd. So teams are pretty careful about that. This is not a way to get out of a full-on assault. This is a way to get out of, for example, somebody trying to CC you from a distance. If you have a warlock, you see him casting fear. You could camo out of it. I mean, you can feign death out of it anyways, but, that's the point is you can, and the other thing is if you can do it during combat, you can camo, and then use that to, charge up a 2.5 second aim shot on your next target, and they can't do anything about it except for potentially AoE you. And assuming that they're in the process of trying to kill your healer, they're probably not going to, they'll either stop killing your healer to come over and AoE you to make sure that you can't do it from camo, or they'll stay on your healer and you'll get a free aim, not free, but you'll get an aim shot off on whoever your next target is. So it's not a bad thing. So was there anything else about the Q&A, or did we want to read that email?
No, I think we're good to go do the email.
All right. Now this was actually he sent us a suggested episode title for last week, but unfortunately we were so efficient at getting the thing edited and pushed up on YouTube that we just basically did it ourselves, and it was horrible. Dark Crew actually did a very good job.
On Sunday or something. It was either Sunday or Monday, and then the email came in on Tuesday or something.
Yeah, so you got to be fast. If you want us to use your name and your summary of the show, we better have it by the end of the day on Saturday, or else it might. It depends on how lazy we are. It's my kid's birthday today, and we have a big party for him tomorrow. So we're going to be. It might take a little bit longer than 24 hours for me to get this thing up to YouTube, but we'll see. So his email says, first of all, in his mind, all he can hear is Andy Richter introducing the show from now on. I don't get that reference. Who's Andy Richter?
I'm not sure.
Allie? Does she know?
Does anybody
all
here
this stuff
know anything about?
Isn't he like Conan's assistant guy or something? For like a late night TV guy?
Oh, maybe. That would kind of make sense. Yeah, no.
That is correct. That is right.
Please.
Yes, he's a late night talk show announcer.
Oh, well, there you go. I think I've actually heard his voice. I just didn't know his name. So maybe if we forget, if it turns out he plays World of Warcraft, and he plays that for us. He gave us a he gave us a episode titled "The Show That the Goat Ate," or Trill Quills. I like that. The show that the goat ate. Do you remember we were talking about the potential of just being able to feed your goat anything?
Anything. That's right. All your gray items, your white items, anything.
Your epics, if you're dark brew.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you could use the recovery tool on BattleNet. You know, I accidentally fed my...
Plus for me, I'm sure.
I accidentally fed my Quell de Larfury the score into my goat. And I don't want to wait for it to come up on the black market auction house. Could you please reimburse me my Quell de Lar? Too bad porcupines have no way of being mispronounced enough to have a play on the Star Trek Trouble with Tribbles. That's a very good point. And there were no questions. This was all just suggestions and jokes at our expense. So excellent.
It just came like 2 days after we launched the show, or posted the episode, I should say.
That's it. But I think that's it for this week. That's certainly the end of our emails and our Q&A. You guys want to go do the outro?
Yeah.
All right. You have been listening to episode 131 of the Hunting Party Podcast. This is your deputies from OutDPS, WoW Insider, and Call to Auction.
And I'm Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
And this is Frosttime from Warcraft Hunters Union, WoW Insider, and Frosttime WHU on Twitter.
And I'm Molly Sonder from the Hunting Party Podcast and the Torlore Podcast.
We're on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, and if you don't use any of those, we have a regular feed on the show notes.
And if you like us, please don't be shy about leaving us a review on iTunes or a comment on our YouTube channel, especially one where you mention how uncommonly good-looking Frosttime is.
You can submit a title for this week's show by emailing us by the end of today at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com and have your name mangled on air by experts.
Stay thirsty, my friends. Remember to drink your Dark Brew Lager.
Don't forget to spare and neuter your feral druid.
Yay, Deathwing.
Fuck cancer.
Viper to cheetah to dragon hawk. No time to waste, cause I can jump shot. BM, MM, and SB. I can rock out any tree. Never worried about my threat, cause I've got FD and misdirect. Catching loose mobs in my traps. I never miss, cause I am hip capped. Cause I'm the hunter, not the marked. I'm the fighter, not the spark. I'm the kiter, not the kite. I'll top meters every fight. Mating and cave dealing death. Just me, my gun, and my trusty bed. Now let's begin with Illidan, Osirian, and Gil'jadan, Magdamar, Asgalor, Gruul, Cthulhu, and Razorgore, Onyxia to Ragnaros. Which one have we killed the most? Kel'Thuzad to Malygos. We even killed a Kama's ghost. Feels like we're getting close, all that running as a ghost. Yogg-Saron, Thorian, Sartharian, Megtheridon, Saphiron, Luciferon to Sulfuron, Archelon, Amalon, Corellon, Algalon. The faction champions, the death toll rolling on and on. Gar, Veil, Executus, Chromagus, and Charexis. Mulgur, Kilvis. We